Hello and welcome back to Russ's Movie Corner. My name is Russ, and as you can see, I'm sitting in front of my movie corner. I have my Star Wars The Last Jedi t-shirt, The Last Jedi Blu-ray right here, and judging by the frame around me, it is back to taking down Left Foot Media's 6 Things That Fans of The Last Jedi Are Getting Wrong. Now, this is a redux of the second video that I ever did on this channel, and when I did that video, there was a lot that I wanted to be able to say and do, and I didn't know that under fair use that I could actually respond to people's videos and like put people's videos up like this and do that kind of stuff. So that one was on me. And besides, I'm doing a little bit more now. I'm a little bit more professional looking, so I wanted to be able to come back and do this video again and be able to respond to it properly, be able to talk about it. And now that we have, you know, The Rise of Skywalker, and we have a whole bunch of other things, I'm actually spending a lot more time now kind of debunking each and every one of these points that Brandon from Left Foot Media here is bringing up. Okay? So, without any further ado, let's jump back into this. On the last episode, okay, we kind of we're talking about Snoke. Where did Snoke come from? Why was he there? Well, according to The Rise of Skywalker, okay, so as of this video being produced, okay, when it was first produced, which was like towards the end of 2017, maybe early 2018, we hadn't had The Rise of Skywalker. We only knew that Snoke was just a powerful Force user. That was it. Okay, he was the leader of the First Order. That was all he was. He was out there. This is what he was doing. As of The Rise of Skywalker, we know that Snoke was actually created by the Emperor. Okay, by his Sith alchemists on Exegol, who basically created Snoke. Okay, to run the First Order until the Emperor was well enough to be able to take over from him. Then he would have taken over, and then Snoke would have been out. Okay? So, that much we know. Okay? But Snoke is no Sith. That much is clear when we read in the Star Wars The Last Jedi Visual Dictionary, okay, that when we look at, let me see here. Yeah. Snoke is powerful in the dark side of the Force, but he is no Sith. That 1,000-year lineage stretching from Darth Bane to the last Sith Lord Darth Vader was undone when Vader died, destroying his mentor Darth Sidious. The fulfillment of an ancient prophecy foretold the end of the Sith, but it never predicted the end of darkness. And the other part of it is that, again, if you're looking at what we only have the prequels, the original trilogy, the sequels, the Rogue One, Solo, Clone Wars 2008 movie, the Clone Wars TV show, Rebels, and now all the stuff on Disney+. That's it. That's all what's considered to be canonical. Okay? And then associated novels that have been written, okay? Those associated novels that have been written, and then other novels that, and then like comic books that have been made, like Phasma is one of them. You know, like, so there's like Thrawn, Leia, there's Phasma, which is a book and a comic series. I think the comic series is actually called Captain Phasma. I'm actually looking at it right over on my shelf. It was like a 4 or 5 comic arc that was right in between. Plus there was like Star Wars Allegiance, which kind of told sort of the story of the end of the war after Endor, like immediately after Endor, how they were trying to, you know, set up the New Republic government, how they were trying to get things going. So there's been a lot of material that has been produced by Disney, Marvel, writers from Lucasfilm, all that kind of stuff. In fact, hell, they even brought back Timothy Zahn to write the book Thrawn, because he knows the character so well. And then they used that as the basis to... They used him as a creative consultant to insert Thrawn into Rebels, the TV show. Okay? So that people would go, oh wow, they brought in Thrawn. Like, he's not Grand Admiral Thrawn, but he's Thrawn. Like, it's Thrawn. Yes! So there is a lot of that going on. And so people need to realize that when we're talking, when we're looking at Star Wars as a whole, there's the Legends EU, but then there's also the Disney EU. The Legends EU is pretty much everything prior to the Disney buyout in 2015, okay? 2014 kind of time frame. And everything past that is now part of the Disney EU. Because again, as I was saying in the last episode, if Disney or even Lucas had tried to shoehorn some kind of brand new trilogy into the convoluted mess that was the Legends EU timeline, people would have been like, well, you didn't fit it in with this book, and you didn't fit it in with that comic, and you didn't fit it in with that game, and you didn't fit it in with this. It would have been an absolute fucking mess, okay? And that would have been horrendously bad for any company. Doesn't matter if it was Lucas, if it was Disney, if it had been a different studio that had bought it. It doesn't matter, okay? They would have had a tough time trying to shoehorn things in. And you would have ended up with things like what he's talking about. Well, we don't know where all these other people came from. Yes, we do. Because we have all of the backstories of why those people were doing what they were doing. Duh. I mean, are you that fucking stupid, man? This is not the Legends EU timeline. This is a completely brand new timeline, because everything that came before 2013, 2014, okay, when Disney bought out the thing and then started making episode 7, they came out and said, we are taking every single thing you see here and we are throwing it out, okay? That is now called the Legends EU timeline. It's gone. Starting over, fresh, okay? And that's why it's like when he says, oh, well, unless they were starting over, in effect they were. Duh. Did you not hear them say that? I mean, honestly? Because if you didn't, I'm just going to sit here and come out and say it. You're dumb if that's what you think. Okay? If you think that they weren't starting over, that they were trying to shoehorn all this stuff into the Legends EU timeline, then I'm sorry, son. You're stupid. Let's jump back in and let's continue on with Brandon's points here.
Remember, like the first trilogy did. But now, this is a well-established universe, a well-established lore. And that means you've got to give us explanations that make sense. Because now when you go back and watch that original trilogy, there's this big burning question. Where's Snoke in all of this?
Where is Snoke in all of this? Snoke didn't exist. Okay? Or if he was existing, he was out in the unknown regions. Okay? Because again, if we look at the map in the Force Awakens Visual Dictionary, okay, we have, this is the galaxy, okay? You have the core worlds, which is where Coruscant, Corellia, Hosnian Prime, even Alderaan is in there. It's not there anymore, okay? Dantooine is up here. Yavin, where they fought the first Death Star. Okay, here's Tatooine and Geonosis. Here's Endor. Here's Bespin and Hoth. Okay. This is Rakata Prime, which, again, if you've ever played this game, you'll know Rakata Prime because that's where the Starforge came from. Okay? But then, this is Starkiller Base, which is also known as Ilum. Okay? That's where Ilum came from. Okay? That's basically where Starkiller Base came from, was Ilum. Okay? That was where they got enough Kyber Crystal to be able to create the weapon. Okay? So, that's the point here. Okay? Is that, again, Exegol's like way up here, according to The Rise of Skywalker. Okay? Exegol is like way up here. So if that's where Snoke is from, okay, if he's from Exegol, okay, after the Emperor's defeated Endor, okay, it would have taken his Force Spirit quite a while to float through space to get back up to Exegol, because it can't just instantly transfer itself from Endor, from the Endor system, all the way up to Exegol. Okay, would have had to float up there. And meanwhile, the Empire was facing defeat after defeat after defeat. And after their defeat at Jakku, okay, half the fleet left. If you read the book Empire's End, half the fleet left and went into the unknown regions. Okay? Where eventually they met up with Snoke. Okay? And basically Snoke took a look at what the Empire did. He took a look at what was going on, and he kind of went, I think we can do one better. And so he took the people and he started creating some of these things that were going on. And he was basically saying, you know, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to work things. We're going to make it so that people understand that this is how everything's going to go. Okay? And that's the point, is that, you know, with the way that some of the people are, okay, they are, and we're back. Sorry about that. I had a little bug crawling around on my microphone, and when I tried to go to hit it, the connection on the back of my microphone, the USB cable, is a little off, and it doesn't sit right sometimes. And so if I kind of jostle it too much, it tends to back off, or it tends to kick out. So, as I was saying, so basically, what ends up happening is that when you have certain events that are going on within the world at large, okay, we know where certain things came from, because we know that at the end of Empire's End, we know that basically when the Emperor's chosen representative, and I don't remember his name right off the top of my head, but when he failed to deliver and he ended up dying, another admiral who was kind of like chafing under that guy's leadership was like, forget you, like, I'm done. And so yeah, he took off. Okay, and so yeah, again, like, here's the Last Jedi Visual Dictionary and here's the map. Okay, and again, as I pointed out before, we still have all these different things. Starkiller Base was right up about here. And again, Exegol is up over here. Okay, and this arm up over here. And so, if we look at, let me see here. Oh, I know this one has a map or two. Let me see here. Yeah. So, this is the Episode 9 Visual Dictionary. and here's Exegol. Okay, so I was saying it was up here, but it's actually a little bit further down. So it's actually closer to where Starkiller Base was. So, because if we look at the episode 9, or episode 7, sorry, not episode 9, episode 7, okay, if we match these two pictures of the galaxy up, come here. If we match these two pictures of the galaxy up, you can kind of see that, like, here's Starkiller Base, okay, and then here's Exegol, so you can kind of see where they are in comparison, okay, so they're almost exactly, like, together, okay, so that's my point, is that if that's where that was, okay, then it would have taken time for them to go and find everything. Now, the new timeline that the Rise of Skywalker Visual Dictionary gives us, okay, let me see here. Yeah, here it is. Imperial Fleet Admiral Gallus Rax collects bulk of Imperial Navy at Jakku. After defeat by New Republic, surviving ships jump into unknown regions. Okay. Leia ends her Jedi training on Agent Kloss upon seeing visions of future and recognizing where galaxy needs her most. Lando Calrissian liberates Cloud City in 29 before Starkiller Incident, and then Ben Solo is born on Chandrila, and then the official founding of the New Republic and capitulation of the Galactic Empire in 29 before Starkiller Incident. And then for 10 years, we don't see much until Luke begins training Ben, and he's also training some other candidates at that point, and then Rey is born in 19 before Starkiller Incident. Okay, and so from basically 30 before Starkiller Incident is where Return of the Jedi ends in the new timeline. This is where Return of the Jedi ends. So from 30 to 19, okay, Palpatine's spirit goes through the unknown regions to Exegol and is sort of reborn, and his son, okay, goes out from Exegol, finds a woman, gets married, has Rey, and then from there we come to 1 after Starkiller Incident, which is where the Rise of Skywalker starts. Okay? And that's where all of that stuff takes place. Okay? And that's where people like this don't understand that when you want to talk from a lore perspective, you have to go from the current lore being produced, not from the lore that you think should be, done a certain way. Okay? So, let's continue on from there.
Who is he? Where is he while this is all going on? How come he's never been mentioned? Why is he not part of this story if he's such a powerful evil villain who's clearly part of the Empire, right? So you have to give an explanation for that character to actually make sense.
Okay, he's not part of the Empire, dude. I mentioned this in my first video. He's not part of the Empire. He's never been part of the Empire. Okay, so he doesn't have to exist in the back of your mind until after the Empire falls in Return of the Jedi. Then you have to think, who is going to rise up and take the Emperor's place? At first it was Gallus Rax, okay, because like the Emperor kind of comes to him and says, I'm sensing some things through the dark side of the Force. If something should happen to me, take the fleet and, carry on with the Empire. Here's my mandate. And that's where the book Aftermath comes in, the book series Aftermath. There's Aftermath, there's there's Aftermath, Aftermath Life Debt, and Aftermath Empire's End. And basically what those books do is it starts right around the time of the Rebel fleet massing near Sullust, and the Emperor's fleet is starting to mass at Endor, okay? And he basically says, look, he basically calls this admiral to him called Gallus Rex, and he says, look, I need you to figure out, because I'm sensing something here, I might end up dead, and if I end up dead, then what I want you to do is take the fleet, okay, and try to keep the Empire going as much as possible. And over the course of those 3 books, Gallus Rax is trying to, like, keep the Empire alive, basically. Okay? And then at Empire's End, there's, like I said, there's like another, like, captain or admiral within the fleet or something like that who is chafing under Gallus Rax's command. And when she senses the impending defeat at the Battle of Jakku, she realizes that there's no reason to stay there, and so basically she, like, tells the fleet, follow me, and then the rest of the fleet hyperspaces away. But in that, there's also the book Lost Stars, which was more of a children's style book when it came out, that Disney doesn't, like, I don't think they listed it under the official, you know, they didn't list it under the official novels, but basically, like, it sort of takes place, like, it starts right around in here, okay, and then it goes through the original trilogy all the way to the Battle of Jakku. And so that's pretty much what happens, okay, and how everything goes in that particular timeline. And so, like, because what happens is, I think, like, somebody in the Imperial fleet or something senses them being called, because there were Force-sensitive people even in the Empire. That much we know from the original thing, from like the original Legends EU timeline. We knew that there were Force-sensitive people in the Empire that maybe weren't, like, they could sense the Force on a fundamental level, but they couldn't, like, use the Force past, like they couldn't use the Force like a Luke Skywalker or a Leia or even like Han, but they could, like, sense the Force. And so, like, somebody sensed a calling during Empire's End, and they basically were like, let's go find this voice that's calling to us. And so they basically, like, took off in the unknown regions, okay? And so that's where Snoke comes in, okay, is who is this person that was calling to them, okay? And again, there was a lot of appeasement going on, okay? That much is clear in the original novelization for Episode 7. There was appeasement going on, okay? And basically what appeasement was is similar to when, like, during World War II, at the beginning of World War II, after 1933, when there was the invasion of Poland and Kristallnacht by Nazi Germany, basically, like, the Allies at the time, like France and England, the U.S., basically conceded stuff to Hitler, okay? And it wasn't until after he had basically taken over France and was attacking Britain that Roosevelt realized that appeasement doesn't work. And basically that's what Leia's whole argument to the Senate was, to the Republic Senate, the New Republic Senate, was before the events of Episode 7. She was like, appeasement doesn't work, folks. It's not going to work. And so they went, well, but we know how we're doing this and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, yeah, but it's not going to work, you morons. Snoke doesn't care. and he didn't. So yeah, they ended up kind of, you know, shooting themselves in the foot. And they ended up getting destroyed in the Starkiller incident, okay? Starkiller Base destroys the Hosnian system, and then the Resistance goes and destroys Starkiller Base. And that's the point, okay? That's where Snoke fits in. Is, yeah, he's a powerful Force user, but he's no Sith, and he's not part of the Empire, okay? He was created as a backup should anything happen to Palpatine, okay? That's the only thing that you should know about Snoke is, oh, he was there to take over if anything should happen to Palpatine. And when Palpatine's body, original body, was destroyed, okay, at the Battle of Endor, then Snoke was kind of activated. And it took him a while to build up his power enough to be able to reach out to the fleet to tell them, hey, come here, I need you. Okay? And that's why that portion of the fleet disappeared into the unknown regions. And so, basically, the rebels thought, hey, we've won. So we're going to set up our New Republic government, and we're good. And then all of a sudden, like, about 10, 15 years later, here comes this extremely powerful Imperial-like navy coming out of the unknown regions and taking over planets, and the New Republic is like, we'll let them have those planets. Really? That's what they decided to do. And it was their death knell. So, I mean, one of the things that people were like, oh, Huck says that I was reading an article that I downloaded called 40 Plot Holes of The Force Awakens, and I remember reading some of these plot holes originally. It might have been the first video I ever did on this channel, but basically I was reading through these plot holes and I'm going and one of the things that they said was, well, we don't understand why, Huck says that the Republic was supporting the Resistance, and so he destroyed them. And I'm like, yeah, to break the back of the Resistance. Look, you can covertly support a resistance movement, okay? Or even overtly support a resistance movement, but still denounce some of the violence that they do, okay? So, I mean, like, for instance, like, here on Earth, the United States government has supported over the years various regimes around the world, for good or ill, it doesn't matter. And, like, we can send money to people, be it a resistance government, be it an actual government themselves, be it a resistance movement, whatever. And, like, I mean, because, like, one of the things that happened was, like, you looked at Syria back in the day, okay, and we were, like, giving money to, like, the Syrian rebels, and then the Syrian government used chemical weapons on their own people. And it's unclear as to whether it was the Syrian government that used them or whether it was the rebels that used them, but it doesn't matter because it's untenable, and we can sit there and go, now wait a minute, we were giving you money, we were supporting you, and now you're actually doing this? No. We don't support that. Okay? And yet we can still send money to those people. Okay? So that's the point, is that apparently these people have never actually studied history before. Okay? Because it's happened in our own history, and it's bad. It really is. All right, let's continue on.
Didn't give an explanation, and then they quickly murder him off in this particular movie. It's not good storytelling. It's not good storytelling. And comparing it to the original prequels, the original trilogies, and saying, well, the original trilogies did some of the same things and no one complained about that, it's because you're comparing apples and oranges.
No, you're not. The original trilogy has massive... I mean, if you're calling Snoke's introduction and subsequent killing off in this film as bad storytelling, then, I mean, like, the Emperor. Like, wow. He appears in one scene in Empire Strikes Back, and then he appears in Return of the Jedi and subsequently dies at the end of the film. So, I mean, you could say that's bad storytelling. It's bad characterization, because we don't know the Emperor. Prequels aside, we don't know the Emperor. Okay? We meet him in one scene where he says the son of Skywalker must not become a Jedi, and then basically Vader convinces the Emperor to allow him to try to turn his son over to the dark side. And he says, yes, he would be a great asset. Can it be done? He will join us or die, Master. Well, that didn't happen. Okay? Because he didn't kill him. Chopped off his hand. Told him, I am your father. And then Luke dives off the side. And they escape. And then they come back 3 months later. And Luke is now a Jedi for some reason. Because without Shadows of the Empire, we don't know how he became a Jedi Knight. We don't know why he's wearing the black robes. We don't know why he's doing all that stuff. He just all of a sudden fancies himself a Jedi now after 3 months. And then he basically goes back to Yoda and says, I need to finish my training. And Yoda tells him, I already know you that which you need. And then he basically says, now you have to go take on the Emperor and Vader again. By yourself. Before basically telling him that if he had stayed, learned how to control his power, and then become an actual Jedi Knight, he wouldn't have learned, when he learned the truth about Vader, because I'm pretty sure that what would have happened is that at the end of his training, they would have sat him down, and they would have said, okay, Luke, here's the deal. Darth Vader, he's actually your father. Okay? And he's going to try to goad you with that when you fight with him. Okay? So when you go face the Emperor and you face Darth Vader, don't be surprised when Vader's like, I'm your father. You're going to be like, yeah, I know. And you know what? That's cool. You haven't been there my whole entire life. But you know what? I'm a Jedi Knight now. Screw you. That fight would have gone a lot different had Luke not just Frank Spencered the whole fucking thing and ran off to Cloud City. But that's part of the hero's journey, is the hero has to learn a terrible truth. Okay? And that's why it was done that way. Okay? The thing is, Episode 8 was as much about Kylo Ren, okay, as it was about Luke and Rey. Because it's exploring Kylo Ren's sort of need for acceptance somewhere. Okay? Hence the reason why he says, let the past die, kill it if you must. Because he's trying to write his own destiny, okay? And in doing so, he ends up killing Snoke. Because he feels that if he has Rey with him as Kylo Ren, then maybe he doesn't need Snoke. He and Rey can rule the galaxy together. They can create the galaxy in whatever image they see fit. Okay? So it's not bad storytelling to introduce a major villain and then kill him off in the second act. Because you don't need that big villain when you have an even bigger villain behind him, but you also have someone who is a petulant child who wants to be able to break free of these shackles that he's under. And we see that in the beginning, in the opening kind of scenes of Episode 8, where he's, he goes to Snoke, and Snoke's like, take that ridiculous thing off, And And then he's like, you were bested by a girl who had never even held a lightsaber. You failed. And then he tries to attack him, and, you know, and then Snoke hits him with a little bit of Force lightning. Okay? And then Kylo gets angry, and he smashes the helmet. Okay? But what does the Emperor do in the beginning of The Rise of Skywalker? He remakes the helmet for Kylo, so that Kylo, like, becomes, so that Ben becomes Kylo again, okay? Because before that, he was just kind of Kylo. He wasn't, I mean, he was still Master of the Knights of Ren, but, you know, he was there. You know, it's like he wasn't wearing his helmet up until the beginning of Rise of Skywalker, after he finds the Sith Wayfinder on Mustafar. He takes that and goes to Exegol, and he basically, like, shows up, and he's like, you know, I have been every voice inside your head. And then it's like you hear the Emperor, you hear Vader, and you hear Snoke's voice. Because it's basically, the Emperor is saying it doesn't matter who it was that was doing this. Doesn't matter which voice you've been hearing in your head. It's been me the whole time. Either through Snoke or through Vader. It's been me behind them pulling the strings. Like he always has. Okay? And so we understand that Snoke was just a puppet puller. He just had the puppet strings, and he was a puppet on a string. That's what we understand. Okay? And even in Episode 8, you understood that he was pulling the strings. Because, you know, Kylo... And the funny thing is that, and they didn't really talk about this, is when... right after Snoke humiliates Hux, Hux goes back to the Supremacy, and he's riding up on the elevator up to he's riding up on the elevator. Let me see here. Let me see here. As the turbolift doors shut, General Hux tugged at the cuffs of his uniform, even though he knew they were perfect. He tried not to think how long it had been since Supreme Leader Snoke had summoned him to his throne room aboard the enormous warship known as the Supremacy. The Supremacy was a massive flying wedge, measuring 60 kilometers from wingtip to wingtip. Its designers had anointed it the first of the galaxy's mega-class Star Destroyers. Such a classification struck Hux as essentially meaningless. True, the Supremacy could deliver the destructive power of a full fleet, but that was decidedly narrow perspective from which to assess its capabilities. Within its armored hull were production lines churning out everything from stormtrooper armor to Star Destroyers, foundries and factories, R&D labs, and training centers for cadets. The Supremacy's industrial capacity outstripped that of entire star systems, while its stores of everything from foodstuffs to ore ensured it could operate independently for years without making planetfall. All of which was by design. Snoke had been steadfast in his refusal to designate a world as a capital of the First Order, explaining icily that he had far more in mind for his regime than ruling a handful of sectors it claimed in the Outer Rim, or colonizing clusters of worlds beyond the frontier. Such ambitions would make the First Order no different from the various non-aligned states that had sprung up in the wake of the Galactic Civil War, or the Hermetic Kingdoms of the Unknown Regions, many of which had been dismantled or destroyed by the First Order during its secret rise. No, Snoke had a grander destiny in mind. The First Order would restore all that had been stolen from the Empire, and then rebuild upon that rebuilt foundation. But until that promise was fulfilled, the First Order's capital would be mobile. It would be the Supremacy. It was a strategy Hux had helped formulate. The Supremacy couldn't be cut off from its supply lines as it carried them with it. Besides, Hux had seen the danger of fixed capitals. They had their own gravity, drawing in everything from fleets to economic muscle to intellectual talent. They were cultural centers, but also sinkholes, and that made them vulnerable. Hosnian Prime, the destroyed by Starkiller Base in Episode 7, had proven that vulnerability, Hux thought. A smile played at the corner of his lips. The former capital of the New Republic was now a charnel house, the churning ember of a star, orbited by a shattered planetary cores, being slowly drawn into rings of dust and ash. Millennia from now, the Hosnian system would remain as a monument to the day the First Order had swept away the Republic's weakness and dishonesty, re-establishing the principle of rule through strength and discipline. And the name of Armitage Hux would be remembered too. Of that he was certain. It would be exalted as builder of the First Order's armies, architect of the technological revolution, and executioner of the New Republic, and very soon, the destroyer of the Resistance, for which he would earn another reward, Hux mused. Commander of the Supremacy would be an excellent title, surpassed only by that of Supreme Leader Hux. Hux almost whispered those 3 words to himself, but caught himself in time. Snoke had spies everywhere in the First Order, including quite possibly electronic ones in the turbolift leading to his private domain at the Supremacy's heart. The doors opened and Hux stepped into that domain, one of few beings ever accorded the privilege of seeing Snoke in the flesh. The First Order leader sat on his throne, flanked by 8 members of his crimson armored Praetorian Guard. So, here's the thing. Okay, here's the thing. Hux, the reason why, if you go back and watch this film, okay, towards the end, when Hux is dead, and after the battle between Rey and Kylo, where they were trying to pull the 2 pieces, the lightsaber, and they broke it in 2, and Kylo was lying unconscious. Okay, when Hux first steps aboard, or first steps into the throne room, okay, he walks in the throne room, sees everybody dead. He doesn't notice the limp form of Kylo at the moment, and because he's like focused on Supreme Leader Snoke being dead, okay, and it's important to understand that passage of him saying, Commander of the Supremacy, which would be only eclipsed by Supreme Leader Hux. Aw, yeah. He's thinking of himself. Hux is thinking of himself as being Supreme Leader, okay? And so, when he sees Snoke dead, okay, standing there and he's going, I get to be Supreme Leader. And then all of a sudden he sees Kylo Ren stirring. And if you watch in the movie, he actually reaches down like he's going to grab his blaster. Because in his mind, he's thinking the only person right now between me and being the Supreme Leader of the First Order is Kylo Ren. And when Kylo stands up, he suddenly realizes that his moment has passed. If he'd just drawn his blaster and shot Kylo right there, he probably could have ended it, and probably could have ended Ben and been Supreme Leader. But he realizes his moment has passed, so he drops his hand down, and then he's like, we need to get down to that planet and finish this. And then he's like, you presume to command my armies. And then it's like, that's when he, grabs onto him with the Force. When Kylo grabs onto Hux with the Force. And he's like, because he's like, the Supreme Leader is dead. And he's like choking, fortune. And he's like, yes, the Supreme Leader, Snoke, is dead. And he's like holding him with the Force like, come on, I know you want to say it. You're going to say it. Otherwise, I'm going to kill you where you stand. And he's like, long live the Supreme Leader. And that's why he turns against Kylo, is because he wants Kylo. So Hux wants to be Supreme Leader, okay? And he was humiliated by the Supreme Leader in front of his own troops, okay? at the Battle of Crate, which is why he wants Kylo to lose, is because he just wants to be the leader of the First Order. Okay? That's all. He just wants to be the leader. I mean, that's why in The Rise of Skywalker, he's like, I don't care if you win, I just need Kylo Ren to lose. Okay? And that's why he does it, is because he's saying that. He's trying to say that as like a, you know, I need to make sure that this is what's going on, because this needs to happen. I need Kylo Ren to lose so that I can become the supreme leader of the First Order, because I could prosecute the war better than he can. And he's just wasting men and resources chasing after all these stupid leads. And that's the point, okay?
It's not the same thing. And like I said, no one's claiming that that original trilogy was perfect, but
I have heard plenty of people claim that that original trilogy is perfect, Brandon. Okay? I've heard plenty of people claim that. So, no, that's a generalization fallacy. Okay? And yes, it's not perfect. There are plenty of things wrong structurally with it. There are plenty of things wrong with the prequel structurally. There's plenty of things wrong with the sequels structurally. But any good Star Wars fan can overlook that for the full story. Okay? And besides, some of those plot holes, some of those things are fixed when you read the novelizations, okay? Even the novelizations of the original trilogy, you can read and you can understand that there were some things that were going on behind the scenes that weren't put into the actual story. And when you read it, it enhances your enjoyment of the film, okay? Like, I read the novelization of Episode 7 after watching Episode 7, and I enjoyed it that much more. Okay, because there were parts that were, you know, shown, that were done, where you could kind of go, oh, I get it. I get that's where they're coming from. So that's cool. They're doing this. But that's the point, okay? Is that there's more to it than just the movies themselves. While the movies themselves are good, okay, they're never perfect. Okay, and I have said this many times to different people over the years when I've done movie reviews, when I've done defenses like this. I've said this to people. You go make a 2.5-hour movie absolutely perfect. No continuity errors, no story errors, no nothing. Go for it. The reason why you have continuity errors is because a lot of times when they have two cameras, okay, and they're doing different takes, okay, they're filming those takes with multiple cameras, okay? Sometimes it's one camera shot from two different angles. Sometimes it's two cameras shooting in the same angle, okay? You know, two different angles. You know, it's shooting the same scene from two different angles, okay? I mean, it's like you look at The Dark Knight, right? Awesome movie, love it to death. It's amazing. But the thing about it is that there's the scene where Batman is interrogating the Joker, and he's holding the Joker up against the glass. And in one scene, like in one part of the scene, when they're looking at Batman, the Joker's right hand is in a different position. When he's got it, like when it's looking at the Joker, he's got it up here on Batman's forearm, okay? And when they're looking at Batman, it's like down away from the thing. It's like not where it's supposed to be. That's called a continuity error, okay? But it's when they're looking at the dailies, which are the takes, all the different takes that they do, okay? The editor and the director are sitting there with a clipboard, and they're looking at the takes, and they're going, okay, scene, you know, 12A, or whatever, 23A, or whatever that is. That's first part of filming anyway. But whatever that scene was named. Okay, so let's say scene 23A. Okay, scene 23A, and it's Batman interrogating the Joker, and they're sitting there, and he's literally got like a clipboard, and he's like, okay, so scene 23A. So as he's watching that, he goes, let me see here, scene 23A, let's see here, take 1, looking at Batman, that one's good, okay, let me see, take 2, nah, that one's not very good, I could tell Christian wasn't into that, well, take 3 might be good, let me see here, take 3, and sometimes they'll even like take like half of take 1 and half of take 3, and they'll stitch them together from like, because it might be like take 1, and then like, and then when they look at the Joker, because they need to see the Joker doing his thing, right? Because when they edit things together, when they edit scenes together, a lot of times they need to look at both characters as they're standing there, like doing things. So he might be like, you know what? I like the way that he delivered that line in take 3. And so after we get back from looking at the Joker, whatever take that was, it could be take 4, it could be take 1, could be take 2, whatever. Then they come back, he goes, okay, I like that delivery from take 3. So let's put take 3's delivery on that in this. You see what I'm saying? That's what they do. That's what the editor and the director do. So the editor and the director literally sit in the thing and they watch the dailies, okay? And they look at what they think would be the best takes. And it's the editor's job to try to seamlessly put all of those takes together to make a cohesive scene. Okay? And it's up to the people on the day that when you're doing a certain scene, take after take after take, that the characters are doing the same actions over and over and over again. So that when someone views the film multiple times, that you don't notice a lot of those continuity errors taking place, because you're going to have continuity errors. Because the person's going to move their hand from take to take. The person's going to move, in one part of the take they might have their hand up, and in another part of the take they might have their hand down. And so you never know how it's going to shape out. Okay? And so when you're doing that kind of stuff, okay, when you're making movies, you're going to have those type of errors. And sometimes when you're writing a story, sometimes you're going to come back and you're going to rewrite a part of the story, and you're going to give it to the characters and say, okay, you're going to give it to the actors, and you're going to say, okay, here's a new scene for the day. Okay? They did this on Lord of the Rings, okay? Like, they were rewriting scenes the day of. I mean, like, Peter Jackson was coming to the set and going, hey guys, brand new scene here. I went back and read the book again, and I realized that how I'd written the scene before didn't work, so here, this is going to work better. And so, like, one of the things that like Sean Bean did is, like, he was literally handed the brand new scene for the Council of Elrond in Rivendell in the first movie. And so a lot of times when you see him kind of go like this and then look up and then start talking, he's got the thing in his lap. Okay? And he's literally, like, reading the lines from that. But that was only for, like, certain parts of it, because other parts of it they kept. Okay? But, like, some of it, when he's sitting down and he's looking down, he's literally reading what he's supposed to say, and then he's reciting it back. Okay? So, because those were the new parts of the scene that were rewritten that, like just the day before they filmed that, like, or the night before they filmed that, okay? Peter Jackson went in and typed out the whole entire scene, printed it out, brought it in, and gave it to everybody. Okay? And so a lot of them, and a lot of them didn't have time, because a lot of times what you do is, as an actor, is you have people feed you the lines, okay, so that you get those lines, because that's how I memorized my lines, is I would memorize a keyword, okay, from the person's speech, okay, from the person's line right before mine. I would memorize a keyword, and when I heard them say that word, I would immediately remember, okay, this is my next line. And then I would say my next line as soon as they were done. And then they would say their next line, and then I would hear a keyword that's like 1 or 2 words before the end of their line that would prompt me to say my next line. Okay? And that keeps the conversation flowing fairly naturally. I don't know how Sean Bean or Viggo Mortensen or anybody ever memorized their lines, but they memorize their lines, okay? Up to the point where they actually do rehearsals where they will get out in front of the camera and they will say their lines to each other. They will do their whole entire thing, blah, blah, blah. And then, they come off, and then they get the cameras all set up, and then the actors go back in front, and then the director of photography, you know, kind of looks through his view scope, and he looks at his little thing, and he goes, okay, I think we've got the shot framed, I think we're ready to go. And then the director goes, okay, places everybody, action. And then they start the scene. So, you know, it might be, you know, from the part where, you know, they've got the camera up in Hugo Weaving's face, and he's saying, you know, friends of old, you know, you've been summoned here to answer the threat of Mordor, and all this kind of stuff. And then, you know, at that point, and they might have other cameras that are looking at the different characters in the thing. That might be done later, who knows. But they're looking at the different characters, and they do all that kind of stuff. And then it's like, as certain people talk, so then that might be one part of the scene. So then he goes, and cut. Okay, good. Now, let's go from the end of that. You know, we'll have, so, you know, Elijah, you're going to get up, you're going to walk over, you're going to put the ring on the plinth, and then that's when, you know, Sean, you're going to start. And then so they'll have probably 2 cameras. One camera will follow Frodo up, and he'll put the ring on, and then another camera will have, you know, him going, so it is true, Isildur's bane has been found. You know, and that's lines that, like, Sean Bean has to memorize, okay? And because he gets up and he says a few things, and then he sits back down, okay? And that's where the new scene that was written is, he has it in his lap, okay? That was that new part of the scene, okay, that was written, is that a couple of them had their lines literally sitting in their lap, which is why they're sitting there like this, so that they can easily look down in their lap, see what they need to say, and then be able to say it. And because Sean Bean had the most amount of lines to say, then he's the one that has to literally, like, he has to look down to kind of like, okay, I'm supposed to say this, this, and this, and then he looks up and says this, this, and this, you know. And that's basically how he does it, okay? And if he needs to make it so that it doesn't, you know, so that it's not shown or whatever, like, as he stands up, he could just take it and just kind of palm it into the you know, into the things. It's just a scrap of paper. So he just takes it and just kind of puts it down into the seat, and then he gets up, and as he's walking, because of the way that his thing flows, you don't see it, because he's not in normal shorts, or he's not in normal stuff. So he's just able to just kind of, you know, palm it down into the thing like this as he stands up, and you don't notice it, okay? Because the camera's on him from, like, here up, you know? And so you're not going to notice that, okay? But that's my point, is that, yeah, there's always going to be rewrites, there's always going to be things happening. They're going to trim scenes down. That's why you have deleted scenes in movies nowadays, is because certain scenes are cut for pacing and time, because it's not important to the whole story, okay? But the story still comes across when you watch it, Okay? You don't need every single part of this to make the story work. Okay? That's the point. And so, to me, it's like, this is just nitpicking from Brandon. Him just standing there going, oh, well, you know, no one ever said that the original trilogy was perfect, but, you know, at least it had good storytelling. It's like, son, you don't know what good storytelling is. Okay? Because Larry Kasdan was actually brought in, originally, okay, to help George Lucas write the story, because he didn't know what the hell he was doing at the time. His story was all over the place. And so Larry Kasdan was brought in by 20th Century Fox to rein the story back in to make it make sense. And even then there's still things that happen with it. Okay? There's still plenty of things wrong with the original trilogy story-wise. And like I've said before, I will crap on the original trilogy to prove a point. Okay? I will, because there are people who say it is perfect. I have heard that.
I'll tell you what, the original trilogy, for all its flaws, is far better storytelling than what we are seeing unfolding, largely thanks to The Last Jedi, in this particular trilogy.
No. No, it's not. The stories are on par. Okay? You are looking at it through the lens of, this is what I would have done with the story, this is what my brother said he would have done with the story, and so because they didn't do what we did, it's crap storytelling. It's not. And that's why we, as fans of The Last Jedi, are saying, watch the film. Because it's all there, you're just not seeing it. But if you actually took the time to sit down and watch through the film and read the film yourself, or, you know, read the novelization and watch the film, you would understand the story a lot better.
Here. The fifth fallacy you hear a lot of from the critics of The Last Jedi is this claim that this was a film that was going in a new direction and people just don't get it, or they don't like the new direction. Well, I don't see that. When I look at this film, I do not see a new direction here. I see so many of the same old Star Wars tropes and nostalgia pieces being rearranged on that chessboard that I don't think you can justify the claim at all that this is a new direction.
Then explain the Legends EU to me. Because that's all the Legends EU ever did. I mean, like, literally, I mean, that's, like, go read the Thrawn trilogy and then go watch the original trilogy again, and you will go, oh, outside of it being the, you know, outside of it being something that the people, you know, outside of it there being no Death Star, it's pretty much the same story being told. Pretty much the same tropes being told. Okay? Like, Luke's characterization throughout the whole entire film is of him being a meek Jedi. Not being powerful at all. I mean, hell, he doesn't even take down the big bad at the end. Mara Jade does. Okay? Similar to how Luke took down Vader and the Emperor, and then he took down Vader, and then Vader takes down the Emperor. I mean, but Luke doesn't even do anything in the final battle. He spends the whole time just, like, kneeling in the throne room at Wayland, if memory serves. I mean, it's been a while since I've actually read the last book, but I mean, I don't remember him doing anything heroic at the end. Okay? Not as heroic as what he did in here. I mean, that last battle between him and Kylo just proves that, like, how much of a badass Luke still is. Even as a force projection. Okay? That had he actually been there on Crate, he would have owned Kylo Ren. I mean, that's the point that they were making. Okay? So while it might not be a new direction, it definitely is a much better direction that they are going in than the Legends EU timeline. Here's looking at you, Jedi Academy. Okay? Because the characterizations of Luke in the Legends EU timeline are all over the map. All over the map. And this is finally a movie where somebody understands the fact that Luke Skywalker always Frank Spencered everything. And so, when the chips were down, Luke Skywalker ran away. Like he always did. Which is why Yoda shows up at the end, smacks him in the face with his gimmer stick, and is like, "Oi, dumbass, what are you doing?" I said, pass on what you have learned. Yes, strength and wisdom, but failure also. And what is implicit in that line? What is implicit in that line? I failed to take down the Emperor in episode 3. And I went to Dagobah for years. But when you showed up on my doorstep, I still trained your ass, didn't I? Huh? Yeah. So just because you have a student fall to the dark side doesn't mean you give up and run away. You might hide for a while, but in the end, you train him. And so, Luke basically comes to Leia as a Force ghost, okay, right after the Battle of Crate, and is basically like, I messed up, not only with Kylo, but also with Rey, so I need you to do what I couldn't, which is train Rey. Knowing full well that she was likely to show back up on Acto. Okay? And that's what she does. Right? She shows back up on Acto, and she's about ready to destroy the lightsaber, and then he's like, "A Jedi's weapon deserves more respect." That was badass. In fact, I knew it was coming. As soon as I saw where she was, and then it's like she looks at the lightsaber and then she picks it up and she starts to throw it. I just knew you were going to see a hand go, catch it and be like, "A Jedi's weapon deserves more respect." That was badass. I was like, yes, that is awesome. Okay. So yeah. I never really heard a lot of people say that this was a new direction for the characters. I knew that they were going in a new direction with certain characters, like Finn and Poe, but for them to say that the whole movie was going in a new direction, there's really not a new direction you can go in. I mean, it's Star Wars. There's only so many stories you can tell while keeping the galaxy embroiled in war. Okay? So the point being that I think this is reaching. I think, again, it's nitpicking. And I think Brandon doesn't really understand that we as fans are, if we're saying that they're taking things in a new direction, we're not saying that they're taking everything from Star Wars and throwing it in a new direction. We're just saying they're going in a new direction from where the Legends EU took off. Okay? So they're still going to take elements of that, and they're still going to make, stories with some of those elements in it, but they're going in a new direction because they don't want to be bound by what was done before. They don't want to be completely bound by what was done before. Okay? Because what was done before was done shoddily and just really bad. And so Disney was trying to, that was the reason why they hired J.J. Abrams and Michael Arndt, is because they were trying to take some of what George Lucas had for his vision and some of the other stuff that they'd had from there, and then they were trying to meld that together, and they were trying to push that into that new direction. Okay? Smash that like button, hit subscribe, drop a comment below, let me know what you think of this Redux. I know, I think, now that we're in fallacy number 5, I'm going to try to get through this fallacy in the next video and then try to get to fallacy number 6, because that's where the huge hypocrisy happens. And that is going to be where I am really going to be ripping Brandon a new one. And if you want to see me take on a few of his other, like Rise of Skywalker or even Last Jedi videos that he has, let me know in the comments below, and I will try to get to them in the future. And as we say, we will see you on the next one.